YouTube, we are all waiting for a new ban list. Konami's actually late on that ban list, so the ban list could be coming out tonight, and we're going to predict what the ban list could be because we are in a weird situation where the ban list probably can't really do much for the meta, because if we look at the tier list here, Snake Eyes is the #1 best deck, and it's brand new. And we know that with brand new decks, they do not hit those brand new decks until they leave the shop. But there's still other cards they could maybe hit. So if we look at the Snake Eyes deck type right now, what are some options that they could hit? Looking through this, obviously they're not going to hit Ash. That's not directly for Snake Eyes. All the cards are way too new. They can't hit Max C specifically for Snake Eyes, Imperm. Now going down this list, I see Jet Synchron. It's 84% overall being used. If I click on tournaments only, it's 86%. This is something that they could maybe ban because they can't. Limiting it to one would do nothing. Should they do that? No. Do I think they'll do that? I don't think so. But that would be the only real thing that they could do within the main deck. Another thing that they could maybe ban or hit with the ban list would be 1-for-1. 1-for-1 being hit is something that a lot of people would not see coming. 30% are not using it in tournaments. But if we look at last year where we were in this similar situation, it was February and April. We're going to look at those ban lists. What were the top decks then? Sprite and Tier Limit. So let's look at back then what they did for the ban list. And you'll see they did do a Tier Limit hit by hitting all their cards that were not Tier Limit, which is why a card like 1-for-1 can maybe get banned. We're also going to go back to the extra deck for some other potential things. So I'm opening up the Sprite ban list, and then I'm opening up the Tier Limit ban list. So these are ban lists where they could not hit these decks. So this was after this February 28th, but this was announced February 22nd. Right now it's February 25th. Where's our ban list? This is the precedent being set that we are behind on a ban list. So it's been 3 days still past the 22nd and no ban list announcement. Not cool. So if we look at this ban list, some unlimits, that's something we could definitely be seeing happening with the ban list, which are really unpredictable. But cards to be semi-limited, Runic was being used with Sprite quite effectively. So limiting the Runic cards and also being used in Stun. So Stun and Sprite Runic were good decks back then. So these were good hits. Fusion Destiny got an unlimit here. Stun for Runic, a mono Watto. So this is what happened when Sprite came out and Sprite was the best deck. Now, for Tier Limit, it was a little bit different. Tier Limit came out in April. So if we look at a Tier Limit card here, let's say Kit Cal, yes? Kit Cal came out April 10th. April 19th, 9 days later, is when they announced this ban list. What'd they do? Unlimits, we don't care about that. Restrictions. This wasn't even being used by most players. They still hit it. Tier Limit, some Tier Limit players were using this, and they put it to 1. Some Tier Limit players, not all of them, again, were playing Foolish Burial Goods, and it got limited to 1. This is because they couldn't hit the Tier Limit cards, and then they banned something. They banned Instant Fusion because of Tier Limit. Ain't no way. So 9 days into the Tier Limit release, they started hitting a bunch of older cards where all Tier Limit players were using this 100%. But only a very little, more people are playing 1-for-1 in Snake Eyes than they were playing King of the Swamp and Foolish Burial Goods. I'm not making a case for banning 1-for-1, but that's something for why we think it could maybe get banned. So this is what happened when we had a new pack release with a new top deck and they couldn't hit the new cards. So let's look at the Snake Eye breakdown again. Something else they could do, which would make me really upset, is this is when Sprite Elf could finally get banned. Now, we keep on saying, this is it. The Elf is getting banned right here, right now. It's only 35% usage within tournaments. But again, I would go back to King of the Swamp and the Foolish Burial Goods. They were not even, I don't think they were even used at 35% to justify them getting hit, but they did. And, you know, Sprite Elf will just forever potentially be an issue in the future of the game, that is, as it's not available in TCG, not available in OCG. Anytime a level 2 is concerned, and this also giving the targeting protection, this could possibly be breaking the game, and maybe Konami just doesn't want to have to deal with that. Konami is using TCG and OCG to help balance Master Duel. And when you throw in Sprite Elf into the mix, they always have to worry about this. Wait a second, is this going to break Sprite Elf? Well, this breaks Sprite Elf. Sprite Elf was a mistake. There weren't enough restrictions put on this card. It probably should say 2 monsters, including a Sprite, to make it, and then there you go. It would be fine. So what other future cards are we looking forward to? Maybe we don't have to ban anything. We can also look at the official in-game usage before I get to my actual other predictions of what they could hit. So far, 1-for-1 in Sprite Alpha, maybe bans. I'm not really predicting that it's going to happen, but based off of the precedent being set, those are things that could happen. So this was right before Snake Eyes came out. February 7th, official in-game win rate. And back-to-back Vanquish Soul has been a top deck on the in-game usage, well, in-game win rate of being around 50, went from 54% to 54%. It's been there at the top for a while. Does this mean Vanquish Soul could get hit? Yes, but should it? You know, again, the Snake Eye just came out. Vanquish Soul's not doing that well. The branded Despia is possibly something you would think that they could hit. If we scroll on down here, is there any branded cards? You see branded lost. So we see branded. We see some Math Mech cards I'm seeing. We're seeing some Vanquish Soul. So I guess those would be decks that could possibly get hit. If they were to hit Vanquish Soul, which I don't think they should do, I've always kept saying that Borger would be the card that they would hit. They would maybe put this card to 1 so that you would have to search it instead of hard opening it. But again, the power of Snake Eyes is suppressing all these other decks where this is not even an issue. And by the way, Snake Eyes is not even at full power. If we type in Bonfire here, this card is out in the TCG and OCG, created in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, by the way. There's an anime clip of a girl activating it, but not searching for a Poplar. Add a level 4 or lower Pyro monster from your deck to your hand, and this does trigger Poplar. Poplar triggers if added, besides drawing it. So this is nuts. And also, just draw your Snake Eyes Ash, and you got the full combo. And so they're all playing 3 of this. If we switch on over to Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta, maybe there is some insight we could have into what could be happening with the game with the ban list. So I would probably start off with the tier list here. The past month, we have Fire King. Now, this is quite deceptive. You're thinking Fire King and Snake Eyes are 2 different decks. Fire King, I would argue, is more Snake Eyes than Fire King. And if we look on OCG, Fire King's the top deck. So let's click on this. Look at that. Snake Eyes Ash, Snake Eye Poplar. It's a Snake Eye deck with some Fire King cards. You're pretty much using 3 to 4 Fire Kings. You're teching in the Arvada, you got the Kirin, the Garunix, and the Ponix, and that's it for the main Fire King monsters in the deck. Otherwise, there's a bunch of Snake Eyes that are helping support the deck. To click on a TCG, it's pretty much the same situation. And if we want to look at how Snake Eyes is looking like over there, so what happened is people, instead of using Jet Synchron, they're searching and or special summoning Ponix, a level 1 fire. And that's also going to happen with another deck, which is going to be with Rescue Ace, which Rescue Ace used to be at the top. If we maybe go back down to last 4 months, maybe. Look at that, 4 months, Rescue Ace at the top. But Rescue Ace in both TCG and OCG have been hit. Airlifter went to 1. OCG, they did some hits also. So instead of summoning or searching for a Jet Synchron, they would search or summon Hydrant. So would hitting Jet Synchron be the correct thing to do? Let's switch on over to Snake Eyes breakdown on the TCG and OCG side for the future. The future of Snake Eyes is not only Bonfire, but we're also getting the Salamangreat Raging Phoenix, which does add some extra plays. Little Knight is basically supporting every deck in existence, so we don't really want to single this out. Jet Synchron at 92% usage here. So hitting Jet Synchron specifically I would say it would be a hit on the deck, but I still don't want Konami to do it, but it's something that could definitely happen. If you look at Jet Synchron specifically, collateral damage is a big deal in Yu-Gi-Oh! Snake Eyes is using it. Synchrons is liking it. Some Rescue Ace, 15% are using it. If we switch on over to Master Duel and look at Jet Synchron is at being used in Synchrons. It's got Synchron in the name. Yang Zing Tenyi. What the heck is that? So there would be some collateral there. What was big collateral damage that a lot of people hated was with the Foolish Burial Goods being used in decks like what's the furry deck, Gia? The little furry girls? This one, Lunalight. Lunalight loves Foolish Burial Goods, and this got hit because of tier limit, which tier limit is no longer an issue. So I would hope that something like this could get unlimited with the ban list, maybe, with that we're newly getting. That's something we could definitely consider, right? So let's look at some cards that could get unlimited. And because for the actual limits and hits, beyond Jet Synchron, beyond 1-for-1, beyond Sprite Elf, I don't think anything would be worthy of a hit, right? Does that make sense? Because the best deck is Snake Eyes, and hitting anything else would be weird. So we go to limited to 2. What are cards that are limited to 2 that could get unlimited? Now, we're sorting by popularity, so ideally, we'd maybe start from the bottom. The least popular cards are cards that they could unhit. Do not unhit the DD Dynamite. Now, Mass Change is actually something they could maybe unhit because it helps you summon Dark Law. And what does Dark Law do? It counters Snake Eyes. So maybe lessening up a card that specifically counters Snake Eyes more so than other decks, that could possibly be healthy for the meta. Now, DK's saying it's healthy for the meta to have a Macrocosmos on the field. No, maybe it's not a good idea to balance the meta with a Floodgate, but that maybe Konami would see that in their own mind. Necroface is, randomly banishing cards off the top of the deck, not cool. Can Launcher come back? I don't really want to say too much about that. I'm not so sure about that. I think Change of Heart should be at 3 in Master Duel because it's seen as a side deck card. And with no side deck in Master Duel, just unlimit all the side deck cards. Let's go. Even something like Monster Reborn should maybe be unlimited. The purely cards are going to stay. Maybe they were too harsh on Dragon Link. This is maybe something they could unlimit. I do think it would be too soon. Did we recently get a burst of zapping energy packs? So maybe this is something that they would want to free up the sprites a bit more. So that could be an option here. Let's look at limited to 1. Limited to 1. If we go down to the least popular limit to 1s, anything. It's time for Prank Kids to come back. Yes. Bring back the Meow Moo. Banned in TCG, unlimited in OCG, and we don't see it anywhere on the OCG meta. Damn. What the heck is Konami? Well, Japan OCG is mostly controlling. So if you don't understand this, TCG is mostly controlled by a separate entity of Konami. They are a representation of Konami that lives in America. And I think for the most part, they have the most control over their own ban list. I think Japan maybe has a little bit of it. Maybe they have to give the final say and be like, yeah, this is okay. But otherwise, we are controlled by the ones who make the OCG ban list. So this is more likely to happen in Master Duel than in TCG. Beaver was a weird hit. They may unrestrict this a bit. Okay, Invokers, newly card destruction. I don't know, would this break Dark Worlds in Master Duel? If we had this more than maybe Fluanderies. They have been unfairly hit for quite a bit. Hit more so in Master Duel than TCG and OCG. What the heck is going on here? You know, you could say without the existence of side deck, this is probably why. Now, beyond these unlimits, let's do a quick roundabout. If they were to hit Branded Destiny, not that they should do, let's see what they would do. They would possibly maybe put Opening to 1, Alibur to 1. Those are options. They could hit Fusion Deployment. Fusion Deployment can go to 2 or 1. These are not suggestions. These are just things that could possibly happen. They could always come around to banning the Anaconda. Anaconda is something that could get banned. They may put Super Poly back down to 2 or 1. I feel like undoing what they already did is really unlikely and something that you should not really be predicting, but it could be an option here. Do they regret Nadir Servant being unlimited? I think that would be fine. Now, what happened with MathMech? What happened is that Bestial usage went down. And with Bestials going down, which counters MathMech, MathMech then goes up. Bestials are not good against Snake Eye, so we take them out, and thus now MathMech rises. So it's not even about MathMech having a good matchup against Snake Eye. It's just no Bestials. It's time to get MathMech in. And the Circular is banned and limited to 1. And would they semi-limit or limit to 1 Circular? It's a possibility. I don't think right now is a good time to do that because, again, Snake Eyes is dominating. But if they were to hit this, Circular would be the card they hit. We go on down to Vanquish Soul, which I already said. Borger, I think, would be the card that could possibly go to 2 or 1, more so than anything else here. Maybe they should free up some pots. What do y'all think about that? And last thing, Super Heavy Samurai. I believe it's still in the shop, right? So what is it still in the shop? No, yeah, it's still in the shop, so it's not going to get hit any of the new cards. But a card like Soul Piercer, limited to 1 in OCG, and the Link banned in the TCG. These are two cards that Konami could be looking at to hit. But again, it's not the sole best deck right now. It's being outperformed by Snake Eyes by quite a bit. So I don't think they should hit the deck in its current state, even though on initial release, it really did warp our meta with making Droll and Lockbird much more of a mandatory card. So Soul Piercer could get hit if they wanted to hit it, and or maybe hitting the Scarecrow. And I think that's going to be pretty much it for my ban list prediction, showing you the past ban list when Sprite and Tearlament came out, leading that into possibly nothing really of relevance getting hit, probably mostly just unlimits. Otherwise, this might be the end for Elf. I hope not. Please do not take my Elf away. Thank you. We're live on twitch.tv/Decade, and that's the end of the video. Hajime.